Karl-Anthony with the pump fake and one dribble inside to the long two, and he makes it. That's been his game his whole career. But look at him smiling. We go, my bad. The long two.
Welcome to another episode of The Long Two. I am Pete Rogers. He is Natty Wallach, and we are a Carmelo Stanthony podcast, but occasionally talk fantasy basketball. Natty, NBA All-Star Game is a month away, and you were telling me that as you start looking at who your All-Stars are this year, you were having a damn hard time picking who gets your spots.
Yeah, it is super duper tough. And I mean, there are some picks that are just obvious, but there are others where I feel really, really bad about it. Like LaMarcus Aldridge is not on my list, and he's had a really good season, and now he's shooting threes, and he's great at it.
Yeah, there's a lot of, so we decided we'd make this podcast. We'll go through our real life, all-star picks for the East and West, and we're doing both starters and bench, so 10 total names. And then we're also going to do our fantasy guys so far. So our fantasy all-stars, East and West starters and bench. And there's some variances. I was actually surprised at how much variance there is between at least my two groups. But it's hard. There are, like you said, there are definitely names who you had to have there. And then from there, it was like, well, who of these guys do I like most? And I found myself a lot reluctantly putting in guys because there wasn't a better option, or just like there wasn't someone who I felt like I could bump up to a starter spot, someone from the bench, but bench starter guys who I didn't really want to have be starter guys or didn't feel like they deserved starting guys. But yeah, so should we just get into it?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you, by the way. Like, all of this comes down to sentimentality at a certain point, because you're just nitpicking and you're trying to find excuses to put someone up or down.
Right.
Like, for instance, I don't have Kawhi, Paul George, Big Cat, Kyrie, Pascal Siakam, or D'Angelo Russell in anything, even though all of those guys score a lot. And it's just because I don't feel like they've played enough games.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So let's start. Do you want to start real life or do you want to start fantasy?
Let's start fantasy.
All right. I like it. I
think this might be a little bit different because this is just sort of like, I love having him on my team.
Yeah. And I think what you were talking about them just having not played enough games for certain players, that rings much truer in terms of fantasy, in terms of whether or not this player is a fantasy all-star than it is in like actual NBA all-star. Because I think NBA all-star, if you look at their general, whatever they've put forward up until this point, unless it's like less than 20 games, then it's like, all right, I can grade off of that. But in terms of fantasy, the best fantasy thing is availability. And so if you're not available, I mean, you're not helping your fantasy team, are you?
Yeah. I mean, totals matter more in fantasy and averages matter more in real life. But again, these are just, like we're all choosing our own standards. So exactly. There aren't really any wrong answers aside from if you don't have Luka as an all-star, then
you're fucked.
I feel like that's my one rule. Like,
yeah. I think that's a fair one rule. Let's start with the East. Natty, give me all 5 of your starters, or give me and break them down. Give me your guards and your forwards.
Okay. So we'll go with guards first. I am going, my starting point guard in the East in fantasy is Ice Trae Young.
Yeah.
Because he has just been he's fourth in points per game this year. He's averaging 28, 4, and 8. He's also fucking wicked cool to watch, which is great. And his team is in dead last place in the entire NBA. And he gets a bunch of press even despite that. I love him. He's only going to get better. He's super young. He's 21. And, fourth in points per game. Sure, I'll take that all day long.
Yeah, he's locked in my starting guard. Without a doubt for fantasy. The second guard was where I kind of twisted. Not twisted. He is listed as a shooting guard. He can play shooting guard and forward. So I made sure that he was a shooting guard so I could bump him up as a starter. Jimmy Butler is my second starting guard because I could not have Kyrie as a starting guard because of the fact that he's missed a month plus of games. And yes, he's been great while he's playing, but for fantasy wise, that's not great. And Jimmy Buckets has just been too good in Miami to ignore. And so I had to make sure that he was getting into my starting lineup.
Yeah, he's averaging 27 and 5. He's fucking amazing. And the Heat are in third place in the East. He looks incredible. He's one of my all-stars starting in real life as well. Jimmy Buckets has proven everybody that he was right.
Yeah, baby. Is he your other guard in fantasy?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, the combination of stats and attitude and cool factor is just amazing.
It's just ripe for fantasy dominance.
Mm-hmm.
Now we might have, I wonder if we'll have more discussion among the forwards. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I have to feel like Giannis is a clear cut. Yes, obviously.
Yeah, of course. He's second in points per game in the entire NBA. He's averaging 29, 12, and 5.
Which I don't know if you know this, Natty. Those are pretty good numbers.
Dude, let me tell you this. So again, he's averaging 29 points per game. 13 players in the NBA are averaging 25 plus points per game. Giannis is the only one of those players to average less than 31 minutes per game. Harden, number one in points per game, is averaging 37 minutes per game. If Giannis was playing as much as Harden, he'd be the point leader.
And you know what Giannis is also doing? Shooting 5 threes and making 32% of them.
Yeah, it's the Bucks look outrageous. They look better than I thought that they could look. I still think that they're going to make a trade in real life. They just don't even seem complete, really, even though they're completely
terrifying
dominant.
To the rest of the league.
Yeah. Yeah, like if they get a scoring point guard, like a real upgrade, that team is going to be absolutely deadly. And Dante DiVincenzo hasn't been shooting threes as well as you'd like, but his defense has been out of control. Like the whole team is doing really, really well.
And I mean, I'm going to use this opportunity because I use any opportunity I possibly can to shit on Ben Simmons. But all of you Ben Simmons truthers out there, and Ben Simmons yourself, like you can't tell me that the 3-pointer is not part of his game, or that he's just, whatever your excuse is for him not doing it, that he's scared, that he doesn't want to look bad, that it's not good for his brand to jack up a bunch of missed threes or whatever it is. Like, that's not how it works. Do it. Just fucking shoot threes in a game until you get good at it. Imagine how good he could be if he shot threes. Look at Giannis. Giannis shot 25% last year. He only took roughly 3 threes per game. Shot 25%. And then this year, guess what he's doing? He's shooting 5 threes per game, shooting 32%. And now next year, what if he shoots 7 threes per game and he shoots 36%. And now suddenly Giannis, the already best player in the NBA who can effortlessly get you, 25 just walking into the paint leisurely, can now shoot 35% from 3, and you can't leave him open for 3, and you're going to have suddenly he's going to add that part of his game. Like, there's nothing that's preventing nothing is preventing Ben Simmons from developing a 3-point shot other than complete and utter cowardice.
I'm so glad I brought up Cora before the podcast.
The doctor has spoken.
They deflated the footballs, Pete. Okay? Just look at the PSI.
Oh, God damn it.
In Ben Simmons' defense, Giannis is 25 years old. Ben Simmons is 23. 2 years ago, Giannis wasn't really shooting a ton of threes, and he definitely wasn't making them. So maybe in a couple of years, Ben Simmons will be
But don't you
closer to
think
where
that
Giannis
don't you
is
think
now.
that the age thing is kind of a cop out, because the NBA was also, even 3 years ago, very different. It wasn't, the emphasis wasn't on 3-pointers. And also it's not only just the age or it's like also the Sixers would be so much better off. It would be better for the team if he could shoot threes and shot them at least
Well, sure.
decently reliably. So it's like, I don't know. It's yes, maybe the age thing is a factor. Maybe in 2 years, Ben Simmons will start being like, okay, I can start shooting threes now because I'm no longer a coward. But
That's a really good Australian accent, by the way.
thank you. Yeah, I totally forgot that he's Australian, and I don't really want to try to do that.
You nailed it.
Thank you. But I don't know. I guess it's just like the 3-pointer this is the time that you're supposed to be shooting threes, and the fact that he is not, it doesn't point to me. There's no reason for him not to do it, even if it looks bad, other than just he can't take the heat. And get at me, Ben. I have no problem. Like, come at me at Pete M. Rogers. The amount of pub this podcast would get if you did anything, commented on this at all. I'm sure you've gotten worse things, so it's not like I'm, speaking anything into craziness. But anyways.
And the Phillies cheat too, god damn it.
Phillies and Bryce Harper's cheating.
It is disconcerting that so much attention and stress is put on Ben Simmons' lack of 3-point shooting, because it does look so strange in the new NBA. Everybody who doesn't shoot threes looks a little weird now and maybe a little deficient, like our favorite player, DeMar DeRozan.
Yep.
It severely limits you and limits what your team can do, especially in the playoffs. So it's just seen as this overwhelming handicap. I don't think that it's fair to blame all of this on Ben Simmons, because presumably the coach can bench you if you don't shoot the threes that he's telling you to, like when you're wide open. Bruce Brown has had a weird system, while the whole team's weird in Philadelphia. It's a strange mix of parts. They do have shooters, and the defense is absolutely amazing. And it's like, if Simmons just made a 3 a game, then we wouldn't really talk about it, I don't think. So I do think it comes down to perception, like you say.
Yeah.
Like if you want to get rid of the conversation, then just shoot 3 of them a game.
Right. Just do it. And if you miss them, even if you miss them all, who the fuck cares? People still like, I'll shut up then. Just the reluctance to even do it, and to even like try, or to seemingly want to get better at it, is just like, all right. And I hear myself becoming like a radio talk head, and I hate it. But
but this is how glaring lack of range is now. This is how much the NBA has changed. Like, even 4 years ago, we wouldn't be talking about Ben Simmons this way and other people that don't have range.
Right.
So it's a real big sea change that happened real fast. And you have to assume that all of these dudes practice threes. Like, I don't think that they just refuse to shoot from long range in practice. And for whatever reason, there's a mental block, or it just doesn't seem like the correct decision to make in the moment.
Yeah.
And that probably compounds itself. It's like batters when they get into a slump. It's like you try to make all of these adjustments, and that just makes it worse. What you really need to do is forget about it. And I think that it's probably tough for Ben Simmons to forget about it, because it's all that people are talking about. Like, people aren't talking about his extra world defense. People aren't really talking about how good Philly is. They keep saying, well, they should be better. I mean, they're in the 6th seed right now, but if they win one game, they'd move up to the 4th. So there's so much emphasis placed on Ben Simmons' lack of range, because if he could shoot from 3, it would change the team.
Right.
Everybody would think of them differently and play them differently. It would be, like unlocking a skill level in a video game.
Right.
So shit, man, if they can do that, then it's almost like they don't need to make a trade. because they already have shooters there. If you can just provide a little bit more space and allow Embiid to really dominate the paint without having to worry about spacing for his point guard, then that would be a fundamental shift in our estimation of what Philadelphia can do this year. Having said that, I love Ben Simmons and fuck Boston. Go Pistons.
But going back to our starting forwards for fantasy,
Oh yeah,
both have Giannis. And who are your other two?
okay, so Giannis is my 4. I had your boy Jason Tatum as my 3. Let me tell you this, son.
Yes,
in fantasy, he is the number 1 small forward in points per game in the Eastern Conference. In fantasy, he's number 1. He's averaging 21-7, and he's shooting 2.4 3-pointers made per game. The Celtics are in the 2 seed. They are 27-11. They're really fucking good. There's so many parts on Boston that it's really hard to single out just one player, but that's why you have to try. Like Jaylen Brown's been great. Kemba's been great.
Everyone's been great.
Jason Tatum, in terms of fantasy and in terms of like the small forward position, and when you're just looking at the East, he's the best one.
Yeah. Damn. I have him as a bench forward for fantasy, and that was just because I didn't really do position for forwards. I just went big and who was getting me the most points.
Sure, totally.
So far this year. So, but yeah, I mean, I love to see any Celtics up here on this list. My 2 forwards, along with Giannis, were Drummond and Sabonis, because both of those guys have just been getting you fantasy points up the wazoo. Drummond was more or less expected, but Sabonis, I have to give him. He is well deserving and has earned the right to be a fantasy all-star this year and to get that recognition. So I wanted to make sure I gave him the props that he deserved.
Dude, absolutely. He's 5th in rebounds per game. He's averaging 17 and 13. That team is good, unfortunately, and he's really good. He is my bench 4.
Yeah.
I think he's just having a wonderful year. I think the Pacers are going to be super dangerous once Depot comes back, especially if Miles Turner can actually sort of, I was going to say get out of his slump, but just do better. But whatever. That team's great. Drummond is number 1 in rebounds per game.
Yep.
He's averaging 17 and 15.
I mean, he's just averaging a dirty double-double.
Yeah. He's he got benched the other game in the 4th quarter and in overtime, but that was just sort of indicative of where the Pistons are, not so much where he is.
Sure.
He's not an overwhelming offensive force, but he gets you those boards and he gets you dubs. And
you know what
his
he
free
did?
throw shooting has been better.
Do you know what he did? Let me find it, against the Bulls like 3 days ago.
Oh, he made a 3.
Yeah, he shot a goddamn 3.
Totally. He's done that before. I mean, he's trying to he's still a super young guy.
Which is awesome. Yeah, he is. And that's always the thing that surprises you, because you feel like he's been in the league forever, which he has. But when they come in at like 18, 8 years in the league, it's like, oh, you are 26 years old.
Yeah, he will be entering his prime on his next contract.
Yeah.
And if he can get some range, then whichever team gets to keep him, maybe they have a much better player. But he's, just because of the rebounds alone, I mean, he's solid gold in fantasy. He gives you, exactly what you're looking for in centers, even though, well, he just made a 3, so maybe that'll start going up as well.
Yeah, baby.
But he's a traditional center, and he's great, and I love him, and he's not going to be a Piston.
Who's your other forwards, other starter?
Okay, so I wanted to give some love to Embiid, who, obviously doesn't play as much as we'd like, but he's averaging 23, 13, and 3. I feel like that's pretty good.
Decent.
Chris Middleton is averaging 19, 5, and 3, and he's shooting better than 40% from 3 and from the floor overall. That's just so fucking solid. Like, he's not the sexiest guy to own in fantasy.
Yep.
And I mean, who the fuck knows what he sounds like? But he's super, super duper good and absolutely solid, and he's having a great year.
So you're starting him over Embiid?
Oh no, he's one of my bench
he's
forwards.
a bench guy. Got it.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I just wanted something spicy. But clearly you weren't doing that. Weren't going for that.
Well, I have the dentist as a bench guard.
Ooh,
I don't know
I'm
if
not
that's
against.
spicy.
I mean, he is currently one of the better performers on my fantasy team. So I don't have him on my all-star team, but I can't disagree with you on that.
Dude, since December 1st, he's 10th in points per game. He's averaging 26, 5, and 4 since 12-1.
That's pretty hot. That is.
Yeah.
That is. Oh, damn.
And the Bulls suck, and it would be funny if they had an all-star. God.
It's the way that you are able to temper your fandom that I think really makes this podcast work.
You have to try to be objective, Pete.
Right.
And the Bulls are objectively garbage,
And
even though they have the exact same record as the Pistons. So what is that?
That's how we do it here. That's how we do it. Shit, you might have convinced me to change one of my bench guards. All right, well, so let's go. So you got Zach LaVine as one of your bench guards, and who's your other one?
And Simmons is my bench one. Yeah.
That's I've got him as a
great.
bench too.
He's fifth in assists per game, by the way.
You can't ignore him no matter how much I try. I had Kyrie as a bench guard. My little demotion was the fantasy impact, but I might also just quickly knock him off the list entirely and put LaVine in.
You go.
Or Bradley Beal, both of them. Bradley Beal though has also had some injury misses, which is never what you want, but so is
Yeah, I mean he's averaging 27 points per game,
right,
which is 6th in the NBA. It's a little ridiculous that I have LaVine or that we have LaVine instead of Beal. Maybe we should do Beal instead.
I got Beal. You can take LaVine and I'll take Beal. That way we've covered all our bases. But fuck Kyrie.
Is on my real life all-star. For whatever reason, I just sort of feel like he shouldn't. I mean, I'm punishing him a little bit for just being on a terrible team.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. Like,
that's fair.
LaVine, we thought was going to be really good, and the Wizards are just weird. Also, Davis Bertans is the best player on the Wizards. So,
tell me,
can we give it to Beal?
Yeah, raise your hand if you thought that was going to be true.
I should mention my 2 all-stars for 3-pointers are Davis Bertans, who's 2nd in 3-pointers made with 3.7 per game. He's shooting 43% from deep. And Duncan Robinson, who's 11th in 3-pointers made, averaging 3.2 per game, also 43% from deep. Duncan Robinson's 3.2 are also tied with Kyle Lowry and JJ Redick. Redick's shooting 46% from 3 this year.
JJ Redick, man, I just feel like I think he's going to get traded at the deadline. I think some championship team or some team with real championship hopes is going to make the move for him because the guy can still play and he's played in so many pressure situations that he's one of those guys who you want on, when the game is in the balance. I remember when he was on the Sixers and anytime the Celtics would play him, anytime he was coming off of a screen, I was just like, well, fuck, there goes 3 points.
Oh, yeah.
Like he's automatic from there. And so any team who's a championship contender would be smart to try to get him off the Pelicans right now. And he probably wants to because he's got that perfect playoff streak to think about.
Yeah, it's this trade season, not much is happening. It's pretty tough to move these salaries. I mean, we all expect certain teams to make moves. Like everyone expects the Lakers to make a move. I
have a story to talk about.
Kuzma's so cheap.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, go ahead.
Can we talk about? Did you see this on? God damn it! I'm so glad you brought this up because I wanted to figure out how I was going to sneak this into the podcast, and now I have. Did you see Stephen A. Smith's Lakers trade?
Oh, the trade, yeah.
Oh my God, what absolute garbage! So for those who hadn't seen it, we tweeted it out on our Twitter account. So make sure to follow @the_Long2 podcast. But so Stephen A. Smith talks about how Kuzma and some players and some picks, and if the Lakers can get it, why not trade for Booker? And it's like, yeah, he makes it sound like there's some like this is a trade that maybe the Lakers should think about. When it's like, I'm sorry, the Lakers, the Suns are going to trade one of the best players in the NBA for Kyle Kuzma and some shit?
Yeah. First of all, no one's trading Devin Booker. Okay.
No one's
He's
trading
10th in
Devin
points per
Booker.
game. He's one of the most exciting young players in the league. Phoenix could turn into a real powerhouse team if they were able to build an actual team around Booker. He's absolutely fantastic and is one of the funnest dudes to watch. He's shooting 50% from the floor, by the way. Having said all that, there is a cynical part of me which is like, yeah, but the fucking Lakers and the fucking LeBron and why wouldn't something ridiculous happen?
I mean, it would. You know it would.
Also, Sarver, the awful owner of the Suns, routinely does shit to, like, sometimes he'll spend money, but then he'll be so cheap. In other words, like, he sold a second round pick for cash. It's that whole team. I don't know. Like, anything can happen with Phoenix, and anything can happen with LeBron, and anything can happen with the Lakers. So yeah, why not?
Yeah. I'm also pretty sure that Rob Pelinka and Rob Lowe are the same person.
Oh, that's funny. They're like, they do sort of look like cousins.
Look
like
eerily similar.
If you saw them at a barbecue, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, well they're related."
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh yeah. No, I was scrolling through Lakers Twitter while I was watching this Stephen A thing, and I saw a picture of Rob Pelinka, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's Rob Lowe." So anyway,
the other thing is that like Booker has a real salary and Kuzma doesn't, and
it's just an awful trade, Stephen A. Smith. I'm sorry. Like, what is his thought? And I love how he phrases it. I love how he pitches it as like, maybe the Lakers should think about this because it could be a good trade for them. Not like, hey, this is a wildly absurd trade that I'm putting out there. That would be an absolute fleecing for the Lakers. Like, the Suns everyone would have to be fired if that trade went through, because nothing the Lakers are going to offer is going to be worth Devin Booker. And I love how Stephen A is just like, if I'm the Lakers, maybe Kuzma, you'd have to add some players and some picks, but maybe you get Devin Booker.
I kind of wonder if maybe he just forgot that that Booker isn't on his rookie deal anymore. I mean, he's still young. He's 23. He's still young. He's super young. I feel like I haven't heard something like that come out of Stephen A. Smith's mouth before, where it just seemed like so ridiculous, just in terms of like misunderstanding what the numbers are on each side. So either he knows something and it's nowhere near as ridiculous as people think, and that's absolutely possible, or he probably just forgot the salary for Booker.
God,
Because otherwise it's because there's like, what do you want on the Lakers? Like, you can't give up Danny Green because he's integral to your plan for the playoffs. I don't think that you really want an offense only player like Booker. I mean, Booker's not a good defender. So it just seems like a strange target. I think they really want to upgrade at guard for sure, but I don't really know if like going after a super elite player seems a little far-fetched, I think, with the lack of assets they have.
Yeah.
Like, no one wants their old players. No one's going to be like, sweet, we got JaVale McGee. Dwight Howard made a 3 the other night.
You're saying the Suns wouldn't want to pair JaVale McGee and DeAndre Ayton as the future of their team?
Dude, okay, so in Stephen A. Smith's defense, the Suns GM, James Johnson, is like friends with LeBron, and I'm pretty they played together, and the Suns already made a weird trade with the Lakers last year. So who knows? I mean, Smith is plugged in. Like, stranger things have happened. I assume there would be like a third team somehow, but I don't I don't really know how it would work. I'm sure the internet will like shoot out all these trade scenarios where it's like, yeah, look, it could work.
Yeah. Anyways, you're doing great, Stephen A. Keep up the good work. Wrapping up the
Everyone's
East.
talking about it, by the way.
Yeah,
maybe
hey,
that's
man,
the point.
that's
Everyone's talking about it.
That's how you do it. I mean, why do you think I have this vendetta against Ben Simmons? Whenever he eventually calls us out on it, we're going to be huge. My to round out the East for fantasy All-Stars, my 3 bench forwards. I got Tatum, I got Embiid, and I got Vucevic. Those are my guys.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. Vooch, right on.
What about you?
I think we mentioned everybody. So my starters are Ice Tray, Jimmy Buckets, Tatum, Giannis, Drum, and then my bench is Ben Simmons, Levine, Chris Middleton, Sabonis, and Embiid.
Swag. Cool beans. There we go. So let's move on to the West then. In the West, I've got for fantasy starters, for my guards, I got Dame Lillard. I bumped him up here
Nice.
because just his season's been great. And fantasy-wise, I mean, he's been huge for you. He's been a delight to have. And
8th in assists per game. He's averaging 26, 7, and 4 with 3.4 3-pointers made per game.
And then my other guard is James Harden, because you can't argue with that. And don't worry,
Absolutely.
I didn't spurn Luka. I just made Luka a forward so that I could put Dame as a guard.
That's totally cool. That's fine. Yeah, Harden is first in points per game, obviously.
Harden somehow is scoring more points per game than he did last year.
37, 6, and 5. That's his stat line.
It's incredible. It is absolutely insane. And the problem is that because he's just like done this so casually now, people are just immune to it. Like there's no this should be one of the most absurd scoring seasons we've ever seen from a player. And it feels like people are just like, James Harden averaging 37 a game. It's like, this isn't ridiculous.
I think it's similar to what his teammate Russell Westbrook went through a couple years ago with the triple-double average. At a certain point, you just see it so much that it must become normalized. Like, you can't keep being shocked. There are reasons why Harden is able to do this, and I think people recognize that. Like, Harden's scoring output doesn't feel the same as Michael Jordan's did.
Mm-hmm.
And even though Harden could have one of the best scoring seasons ever, it seems like he uses technicalities a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And his step back three, while it's respected, it's not admired. And I think he's always going to get negative kudo points for not being great on defense, and his sort of reluctance to try to be a better all-around player.
Yeah.
But the scoring's crazy. Like in fantasy, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
He's number one in points.
Defense.
Right. Obviously, the guy who's the points leader should be on your fantasy team. He is my starting 2-guard. God, he's good.
And is Lillard your 1 guard, or do you have Luka there?
I put Luka at my 1. 3rd in points per game, averaging 29, 9, and 9. He has the Dallas Mavericks in the 6th seed right now, and he's just, probably the number 1 pick in any fantasy basketball dynasty league.
Oh, yeah. Yep, 100%. I am very happy that this league that I took over, one of the owners was not doing, he was not being an active member, so they kicked him out. And so I joined just before that draft and had the first overall pick because his team sucks. So I took Luka. And I have not looked back. My team has been very good because of it. So I'm very happy. But yes, he is a must-have and is a god.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. It was cool watching him get frustrated and
tear his jersey.
It's just, it's great. It's awesome. Right on. What's your front court?
Yeah, so my front court, I got Luka, and then I got LeBron and Davis, just because both of those guys have been playing phenomenally. Anthony Davis, I talked about on last week's podcast. I gave him a win because I was hard on him all offseason, but he's been great for you in fantasy and has been able to play a fair amount of games. And then for LeBron, I think the most preposterous thing about him, and maybe people expected this, but his assists have just been phenomenal. And it's not a part of the game that I thought was going to be as productive as it has been.
I would love to remind you, however, that we talked about that possibility on this podcast before the season. What did we say? That LeBron was going to be the distributor and he was going to make the team look good. All of the AD for MVP was bullshit. Anthony Davis could win Defensive Player of the Year, but LeBron has a much better chance of being MVP. He's first in assists per game. He's 12th in points per game. He's averaging 25, 7, and 10. He's once again changed himself and added things to his game. He looks it's just so weird how he's looked like different players at different points in his career. It's so impressive. He's my starting small forward. AD is my starting 4. AD's scoring 27, 9, and 3. He's 7th in points per game. And then I have Joker at center, who's averaging 19 and 10 with 6.4 assists per game. And since December, Joker has been scoring 20 plus.
I love it. Yeah, he's one of my forwards on the bench. So I can't argue with the fact that he's been extremely productive for you in fantasy.
Yeah, and at center position, getting those assists, like he averages the same amount of assists as Chris Paul, the point guard. So you will absolutely take that from your center position.
100%. All right. And then on the bench, who are your bench guards?
My bench guards are the point guard, or the point guard, excuse me, CP3, who's averaging, yeah, exactly, just the one. He's the only one that matters. He's averaging 16, 5 rebounds, 6.4 assists per game. Oklahoma City is in the playoffs. They're 23 and 17. He's a big part of the reason why. And my 2 guard is DeMar DeRozan. He does not shoot threes. He averages 22 points per game, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. I love him so much. And he's shooting 53.5% from the floor. The Spurs are not in the playoffs right now. Memphis is. But DeRozan gets you points, and 5 assists and 5 boards per game is fucking great. So a lot of people wouldn't have him as their 2 guard in fantasy, but I don't give a fuck. I love him. Go to Chosen.
Yeah. Also, it's preposterous that Memphis is currently in the playoffs. I love it.
They could make a trade. What if they make a trade to get really good? They could trade for Devin Booker and some picks.
Ooh. I mean, if all the Suns need to trade away Devin Booker is Kuzma and some players and some picks. I mean, come on, Memphis, you can top that.
They're Memphis and Oklahoma City were supposed to be not in the playoffs this year. They were supposed to be on the sort of rebuild track, and they're both in the playoffs. And neither the Spurs nor the Blazers are. And obviously the Suns, after their fast start, the Suns are 16 and 23. They're trash.
They are. Okay. So then my bench guards, who I got for the West, I have Booker, and I wanted to put him in here just because I like to give him props, just like what I did with Sabonis. Brandon Ingram, man, way to get out of LA and thrive and to become the player that that a lot of people expected you to be. Maybe you haven't hit your highest of ceilings yet, but you've looked great. You've put together a huge season. And for anyone who's stuck with him in dynasty leagues, or if you got him late, probably in redraft leagues, hey, he has played extremely well this year.
Dude, he is the only player that sort of looks like the Pelican logo anyway, with his long ass fucking arms and his bird bones. He's 13th in points per game. He's averaging 25, 6, and 4. He is so fucking good. I'm so glad that this worked. He's great. We've liked him since he came into the league. And we always, talked about is this the sort of guy that can turn into an MVP? And he looks like he could become one of the best players in the NBA. He's my bench small forward in fantasy as well. He's so good.
Oh, you have him as small forward, yeah. Oh my God, I'm now looking at my my bench forwards. This is going to be a crazy lineup, but I'm here for it. My bench forwards are positionless. We're just going to roll with that, and I'm going to say it's Cat, Joker, and Rudy Gobert. So make with that lineup what you will, because it's Devin Booker, Brandon Ingram, Karl-Anthony Towns, Nikola Jokic, and Rudy Gobert. I mean, you're not doing anything on that team.
I do sort of feel like you could play those 3 guys at the same
time.
Couldn't you? Just because
it's kind of crazy, but I think you could.
Yeah, that's so funny. Gobert is averaging 14 points and 14 rebounds per game. He's 2nd in rebounds per game after Drum. He's absolutely fantastic and gets you double-doubles all the time. In
He's
real
another
life,
guy
his defense.
who I owe an apology to because I did not have him. I don't think I had him in my top 5 fantasy centers, which you gave me a lot of shit for, rightfully so.
Yeah, but for the first 2 months, you looked right. Like Utah just didn't look like a great team, or not as good as anyone thought they would. He started it off slow, the Stifle Tower.
Yeah.
But he's just looking fantastic, and he's probably going to keep getting better. It would be nice if he scored more, obviously, but you can't have everything in life. I'll take second in rebounds. That's totally cool. For my bench center, fuck yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Do you have any changes for your lineup? I know you've got Ingram in there, and who else is your front court?
Yeah, so Ingram's my small forward, Gobert's my center.
Okay.
My bench 4 is Mr. 3J, Jaren Jackson Jr.
Wow.
Yeah, this is fantasy.
This is
So let me tell you
fantasy.
why. He is the only person in the NBA who has over 100 3-pointers made and over 50 total blocks. That's what we call some nice scarcity.
Yeah.
That's the kind of shit that Brooke Lopez did last year. 3J, okay, 16 players have over 100 3-pointers made, including Jaren Jackson Jr. 3J has the 4th best 3-point percentage of that group, 41.8%. Since December, he's averaging over 20 points per game on 50% shooting. Memphis is 7-3 in their last 10 games. They're in the 8th seed fighting with the Spurs. 3J looks so goddamn good, and I'm so excited about that team because, I mean, the other young players look sensational as well.
Yeah.
But he's just been so good over the past month and change. And I'm going to reward him and his playoff team with an all-star spot.
Hell yeah. And you know what the best thing in the world is about this, Natty? People can't give a shit because this is fantasy. These are our fantasy all-star teams.
I mean, he's, 20 points per game. That's nice. He's 5 minutes old, and he shoots with efficiency. Yeah, I'll take all those things. Thank you very much.
Please and thank you. All right, well, let's get into our real-life all-star teams. But before we get into those, let's take a quick ad break. Time to do our real-life all-star teams. And this is maybe more difficult. I had a lot of players in here who I kind of was like, I guess, or was like reluctant to put in there. But we'll start with the West this time. And I feel like starting guards, I have Luka and Harden as my starting guards for the West in terms of real life all-star team.
Yeah, ditto. I mean, I don't even think there's debate about that.
Yep.
Like, unless someone was like, well, you can't put Luka at the 1. It's like, okay, fine.
Sure.
But,
sorry.
But then the guy who's going to be at the 3, LeBron, is the assists leader.
Right.
So
sure,
what do positions
LeBron
even
as the point
mean,
guard,
man?
And if you want, and I'll put Luka at the 3.
Yeah. And if you're going to tell me that the guy with the most assists can't be the point guard, then I'm going to yell at my reflection and say there are no rules.
And then for forwards, I have LeBron, Davis, and Kawhi.
Okay. I have LeBron and AD. I am penalizing Kawhi for playing only 30 games this year. And also showing love to the French rejection. Rudy Gobert is my starting center in the West. His defense is just all world. Yeah. He's so good.
Yeah, no, and it's been on full display this year. And you can't disagree with that. Bench guards, who do you got?
I have Dame and DeChosen on my bench.
Nice. I have Dame and Devin Booker.
Right on. Totally.
Yeah, the DeRozan. So I will say I wrote this before I made my picks before I read your article on DeRozan, which is out on faketeams.com. So make sure you go check that out, talking about DeMar DeRozan's season and how he is, even though he's a small forward or even a shooting guard, sometimes he's playing like a big and is top 13, you said, I think, and field goal percentage, isn't shooting threes, but still is having a wildly productive season. And so after reading that, I do think that he should get some all-star love, especially given the fact that he is definitely zagging while everyone else is zigging. But I couldn't pass up, future Laker Devin Booker.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, this is a sentimental pick,
Of course.
for sure.
You've been on the DeMar DeRozan train. Plus, also, I mean, you have to give some props to him after he literally murdered a man on the court.
Yeah, that dunk was like people on the bench were looking away. It was like a car crash. It was so terrifyingly, incredibly like loud and violent. God damn, that was awesome.
It was preposterous.
And you don't really like sometimes I'll be watching games and I won't have the sound on. I'll be listening to something else or doing something else. And so it's sort of hard to appreciate dunks that way, obviously, because some of it is the sound. And you just have to sort of judge by the reaction of people when it's a really big one. And with this, I just watched it silently after the first time I saw it. Was like, everyone reacts in such an amazing way.
Everyone, yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, that was a phenomenal dunk. For your bench forwards, who do you got?
Okay, so I have Ingram again. And I changed my mind. I am going to have LaMarcus Aldridge as my bench four. He's
very nice.
just having a totally solid season, and he's shooting 50% from the floor. He's shooting 44% from three. He's now a long-range assassin. He's just averaging 19 and 7 very solidly with a couple of dimes. He's such a solid professional player. I love him a lot. I don't know what the Spurs are going to do. I don't even know if you can move LMA that easily, but I think he's been one of the best players in the NBA this year.
Yeah, sure. And who's your third?
Oh, and then Joker's my bench center.
Okay, yeah. I had the exact same thing as you, except I replaced Aldridge with Towns. And I know that Towns
That's cool.
I have to reward the man for shooting lights out from downtown this year.
Oh yeah, one of the best 3-point shooters in the game. But
crazy.
I mean, I would have him. He's only played 23 games, and to be honest, like Kawhi and Paul George should be on this list too, but they haven't played enough games for us.
That's
so fair. This absolutely.
In real life, since we are talking about real life, Taco Fall in fan voting is the 6th front court guy for the East. What is because I know some people went up in a whole uproar about that, but I feel about the All-Star games the way that I feel about the Pro Bowl, which is like, if you're going to if it's going to be a popularity contest, let's vote in fun people to see play. Like, I would love to see Taco Fall play in the All-Star game because he is 7'7", and why the fuck not see him play with like the best players in the league or whomever, could be around there. And the same thing with Caruso. He's also almost getting voted in the West. So I was curious, this is your viewpoint, because in my viewpoint, there were some people I think who were like, well, this isn't, he hasn't actually played enough to be an all-star. It's like, or it's a really fun game that no one takes seriously. So let's vote in players who we want to see play in it.
These games, across these types of games, all-star games, Pro Bowls, across all the sports, they're the only time when the fans are literally telling you what they want to see.
Right.
Like, they're voting for a guy that hasn't even played, I don't know, like 50 total minutes or something. Maybe he has, but he's a curiosity. He's not an NBA player, and he's certainly not an all-star, but people want to see him. So if the people that are voting are taking enough time to actually do this, then the NBA should absolutely pay attention. These are the people that spend their time NBAing. You should give them what they want. It's not the worst thing in the world to have like an honorary spot for fan votes for each conference, and then you get to have fun players like this, and the fans get to feel like they had an impact on what happened in the season.
Right.
If you want to be a wet blanket on it, then change the rules.
Right, exactly.
Like, we're not the ones that's
just do your own.
Totally.
And that's what the all-pro team is in football, where it's like, then you actually have the all-pro team, which is far more important because it's actual writers and people who care about football vote as opposed to just fans voting. And so it's like, all right, if you're going to make the all-star game a fun thing that fans can participate in, respect what the fans are what the fans are choosing. Or if you don't want that, then don't have fans vote.
They are literally telling you what they want to see. It doesn't matter if they're being serious or not. They would love to see it. And, just about the All-Star game in particular, the media says that the players don't take it seriously. The players say that the media don't truly understand who's good and who isn't. And everybody says that the fans are stupid and, aren't taking all of this seriously and don't know what they're talking about anyway. So, like, either everybody's wrong or we shouldn't, judge what people want to see Taco Fall. It's cool. He's awesome. He's so tall.
Yeah. How could you not?
Also, it's a meaningless game. Who gives a fuck?
Exactly. All right. So
I don't even really want some of these guys playing in the All-Star game. I mean, I have real issues with having. No one ever gets injured, but if they did, it would be devastating.
It would be. Oh yeah, especially since it's in the middle of the year. The Pro Bowl, at least.
Yeah.
Like, if a player gets injured in the Pro Bowl, no one in the Super Bowl plays, and so if they get injured in the Pro Bowl, it's like, okay, you have all off season. If Giannis were to get injured in the All-Star game, there goes the Bucks season. Done. Down the drain.
Yeah, and we'd start hearing calls to get rid of the All-Star game.
Yep.
And the people will counter that argument by saying, "Oh yeah, well no one plays defense in the All-Star game." That's not always true. We have seen All-Star games where some of the players took it very seriously and like a challenge. And even though defense on the whole doesn't get played during the All-Star game, that just means that they're trying harder on offense and they want to do spectacular shit and really technically difficult stuff.
Right.
So whatever.
Do you know?
But it never happens. Knock wood.
Do you know how Paul George and Gordon Hayward shattered their legs? Not because of defense, just because they dunked the ball.
That's a great point.
That's
a great point.
Offense can still kill. Never forget. All right. In real life, East All-Stars. For guards, I have Kyrie and Trae Young. Kyrie, I did not give a bump because of missing time. I was like, you know what? He's playing at the best level. I'll give it to him. So
nice. I had Kemba and Bradley Beal.
Those were my bench guards. So all right.
Yeah. Kemba's averaging
so tell me
21 plus points per game.
Why doesn't Trae get your starter?
Because the Atlanta Hawks are hot butt
okay.
And the Boston Celtics are a title contending team.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, that's really all that it is. Like, if Trae Young, sometimes I'm like, man, I hope Trae Young isn't trying on defense, because if he is, that's even more
That's really sad.
Yeah. Like, if Harden were to come out in his memoir and be like, I was trying my best the whole time, I would be, it would upset me.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? It can't be. Oh, Jesus. But I think there were some other like Ice Trae, obviously, just because of the scoring. I think Kyle Lowry could have been a consideration for a starting guard spot.
Interesting.
He's sixth in assists per game. He's averaging 20 points, 7 and 4 with 3.2 3-pointers, or I'm sorry, 24 and 7 with 3+ 3-pointers made. He's having a great year, and the Raptors are in the 4 seed when people didn't think that would happen. And Pascal Siakam has also missed a bunch of games. And I love Kyle Lowry. Did you see his Hockey Man interview, post-game interview? He just tried to affect the Canadian hockey player kind of.
I love it.
It was great. He's so funny and awesome.
He is great. It was really sad to see him and DeRozan's relationship get broken up.
All I want for Christmas is DeRozan back in Toronto with Kyle.
My God.
That's all I want.
That would be beautiful.
So yeah.
Your East starting forwards.
Okay, so I'm putting buckets at my small forward position. Jimmy Butler just looks like one of the best players in the NBA right now.
Yep.
And if they can get, I don't think there's any way they'll get the number 1 seed in the East, but if they get the number 2 seed, I sort of feel like you have to talk about him as an MVP candidate. So he's my small forward. Giannis is at my 4.
Which we did talk about.
Yeah, totally. He plays mad. He's pissed off at everybody, and that's going to win you awards. Just like Westbrook when he was averaging a triple-double out of spite. And I have Joel Embiid as my starting center.
And Giannis as your 4, I assume.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh,
Of course.
yeah.
It was almost didn't even need to say. It was
it's
yeah.
wildly
Giannis
unnecessary to
Giannis
say
is the only all-star. All these other jokers, these assholes.
They're just there for Philly. Yeah, I had the exact same thing. I had a reluctant Embiid. I guess even though I was stingy on Embiid for injuries, I was not stingy on Kyrie for injuries. Don't ask for my logic; it's not there. But it was just this was the main one where I was like, if I don't have Embiid as a starter, who gets bumped up? And I didn't really find anyone. I was thinking between Siakam and Tatum, and then ultimately was like, nah, Embiid is the starter, and I'll just put Siakam and Tatum as my bench forward. So,
yeah, it's when you're a Boston fan, everything's so tough, Pete.
It is really hard for me.
You just hate everybody.
I appreciate the fact that you are taking the time to walk me through it.
It's still really funny that you guys have your center rotation that you do.
It's yeah. Awesome. All right, so let's go into the bench for the East. My bench guards, I already said, were exactly who your starting guards were. I had Kemba and Beal. Both of those guys are having terrific seasons, and you can't argue with. They had to be in an all-star lineup. I couldn't put them into the starting, so we're going to get them in the bench. And I love what Kemba has done in Boston, and it just seems like it's been an effortless transition for him too, and that not only the team loves him, but all of Boston loves him. So it fills my heart with warmth. And if I was trying to be as impartial as possible, had I known that you would have had him as a starting guard, I would have put him as a starting guard too. But I tried to quell my Celtics fandom as much as possible.
And he's fucking badass.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we forgot that. Oh yeah, and he's super cool and should be there.
And he got kicked out for what exactly? We're unsure. But he's got an edge to him, I guess, according to referees.
I mean, sometimes you've just had a day, You're like, man, fuck this. I don't even care.
Who are your bench guards?
Okay, so for my bench guards, I went with the best defensive point guard in the East and the best offensive point guard in the East, Ben Simmons and Ice Trae. I just kind of really want to see those two play together.
It would be fun. It would be fun to maybe Trae could rub off some of his 3-pointing on Simmons.
Like, of all the teams that we could talk about for, like, if Philly breaks up Embiid and Simmons, I do kind of feel like it would be a cool spot for Simmons to land in Atlanta with Trae. Because then you have two really good distributors, but they're radically different players. Yeah. And then who knows? It doesn't seem like they want John Collins to play center. So maybe Ben Simmons could be the East Coast version of Joker and be a big distributing guy. And then maybe his lack of 3-point shooting wouldn't matter as much.
That is intrigued. I am intrigued by that.
And then maybe you wouldn't hate his guts as much.
No, I would. I certainly wouldn't. It's also I have been like, I mean, if you listen to this podcast from its inception, one of the things that I will firmly stand on is the Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid will not work together hill, and you need to break them up. And I think Philly is, as a city, way too invested and loves Embiid too much to trade him. And so I think at some point the Sixers are going to have to trade Ben Simmons, and I would love to see what he can do on his own team, because I think that is what is holding him back ultimately. So getting him in the Hawks, I could get behind that.
Also, the Lakers have Kyle Kuzma and a couple of picks and some players.
A couple of players and a couple of picks.
All of a sudden.
I mean, who says no?
I would shit my pants, by the way, if that happened. But,
that would I don't even know how that would happen. How?
Let's not think about it.
Let's not think about it. It'll break our minds.
But wait, he's a Kardashian guy, isn't he? Fuck, it's probably going to happen.
Fuck, it's definitely going to happen.
And he's probably with Clutch. Ugh,
God, it's definitely going to happen now.
Fine. Whatever.
My forwards, I've got Siakam, Tatum, and then I guess Bam Adebayo. Sure, he's been great this year, so I figured I'll give the young guy some props.
I stuck with Tatum, Sabonis, and Drum. Tatum and Sabonis, we talked about.
Yep.
They seem so important to their teams that I feel like they really are like sort of the definition of all-stars.
Yep.
And Drum, because the Pistons he might not even be on the team by that point. That would be
but the
amazing.
Pistons need something good going for them, and
I don't know, do they? Like, just fucking burn the whole goddamn thing down.
There you go. That's the positive can-do attitude I know from you. Awesome. Well, there you go. So those are our all-stars as we near the halfway point through the season, both in real life and in fantasy. And before we go, let's quickly do what we always do, Natty. Let's rattle off some studs and duds. Some players who are going to have a great rest of the week in fantasy, some players who are going to struggle. And, if we got some buds, guys who we just want to keep watching play, we'll talk about them too. Shout out to both of us for the first time nailing both our picks. Even my daring Luka as a dud pick panned out. So congratulations all around, everyone. Congratulations. I feel like pick should be counting more, but it's not. You are still holding the lead in terms of correct averages. So let's what do you got for a stud this week?
Okay, my stud this week is Mr. Kyle Lowry. The Raptors are playing the Thunder, the Wizards, and the Timberwolves. Kyle's been 8th in fantasy over the past month. He is so fucking sick and good. And outside of the Thunder, I feel like he'll be able to sort of have his way against the Wizards and the T-Wolves. So I think he's going to have a pretty good week.
I like it. My stud for this week, not a particularly hard pick, but I'm going with Malcolm Mitchell. The Jazz are playing the Pelicans and the Kings, both of whom like to give up fantasy points. So,
I heard that. Yeah. I heard that they like to do that.
They've been known to surrender the few here or there. So I think Malcolm Mitchell, he's going to be able to perform quite well for you in either DFS or if you got him on your squad, obviously you'll just keep riding him.
Nice. Love it. Who's your dud?
I realized
Ben Simmons.
Ben Simmons sucks. Halfway through the podcast that I hadn't done it. You know what? All right, here's my dud. I'm going to get daring again because it worked so well for me this time. And nice. And I'm going to do it again because, when it works for you once, you write it again. Oklahoma City Thunder playing the Raptors, the Heat, and the Trailblazers. Trailblazers, maybe this one won't pan out for me. But the Heat and the Raptors, both solid. CP3, point guard not going to be successful in fantasy for the rest of the week. He is going to put forward a dud. And I'm right because I called Luka's dud.
Nice. That is a big swing. I love it. I am going to try to counter. I am choosing as my dud the guy who's been 9th overall over the past month.
Nice.
And he is also playing the Raptors, Heat, and Blazers this week. I'm going with SGA, Woo! Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think he is going to have an enormous target on his back after that triple-double. I think that, first of all, these teams have good guards, and it's just going to be hard to play anyway. And, he's still a young guy. He's still a really super young player. And it'll be interesting to see how other teams play the Thunder now, because are they going to focus on SGA? Are they going to keep focusing on the point guard? Second time I did that. Danilo Gallinari is still there. Steven Adams is still, like Dennis Schroeder. The Thunder are really, really good. They should be primed to make a trade to get better, but maybe they don't care that much. But I think SGA is going to have a really tough week. We're both going with the Thunder guards. I love it.
Yeah. This is the problem when I do my studs and duds while we are recording, while I do them live. I talk myself into absurd picks because the other guy I was thinking of, and probably the guy who I should have gone now that I'm looking over the schedule and reflecting, I went with Chris Paul as the big sexy name. Probably should have gone with like Spencer Dinwiddie, who plays the Sixers and the Bucks.
Oh, yeah. That's a good call. That's
probably a better pick. But I'm sticking with Chris Paul, baby. I'm going back-to-back daring duds.
But also dud maybe doesn't apply as much to Spence because some of his value is taking a hit because Kyrie came back. So it's not particularly dependent on like who they're playing.
Right.
But you can expect Spencer Dinwiddie's numbers to come down a bit now that Kyrie is
back.
Yeah.
Do you have a bud?
I do have a bud. Go Pistons. This is the Detroit Pistons podcast. Sekou Doumbouya is playing Boston
your boy.
and Atlanta.
You have been on him since the beginning.
So now that Blake is out injured and Drum seems to be getting benched sometimes, and the fact that Dr. Doom is apparently his nickname, and that's the coolest
that's
goddamn
amazing.
fucking thing.
Also, for
ever.
any nerd and Marvel people know that Dr. Doom is like the most powerful villain in the Marvel universe. Like he destroys Thanos. He pulls Thanos' spine out of his body. So if you think Thanos is bad, wait, the Dr. Doom nickname means you got some serious shit going for you.
Pete, Dr. Doom has stolen the Beyonder's power on multiple occasions. Okay? Secret Wars is about his ambitions.
Fuck yes.
Also, Sekou Doumbouya is the youngest player in the NBA. He was the 15th overall pick in the draft and was considered one of the best international prospects. He looks really good. He's had several double-doubles over his first handful of games starting, and it probably is going to be fire sale in Detroit, so they're just going to be playing the young guys. Bruce Brown is also a good guy to pick up. He's been the 55th best player over the past month on ESPN. Doumbouya, Dr. Doom, is going to get minutes. So all of the young guys on Detroit should be targeted by people. Even if you don't pick them up right now, they'll be good streamers, and you should just, if these dudes are going to start getting 34 minutes a night, you need to pick them up.
100%. My bud, I don't know when it's going to happen, but you got to put it out there because the rumors are starting to fly now. Eventually, Zion is going to step onto a court, and eventually we're going to watch him play. And when he plays, the whole world is going to be watching him, and I can't wait to eventually see it, especially with this Pelicans team that we've already spoken so highly about on both this pod and in pods past. But I don't feel like there is any player in the NBA who I am more excited to watch play than Zion when he eventually takes the court. So has to be an easy bud.
I'm glad you mentioned that because the Pelicans are 15-26 right now and out of the playoffs. The 8th seed in the West, the Memphis Grizzlies, they're 18-22. It's not impossible for New Orleans to go on a run and try to force themselves back into the playoff conversation if Zion is the coming of the man that we think he could be, and if he fits with Brandon Ingram. I mean, the team could all of a sudden overnight look completely radically different. And God damn, that would be so cool for Pelicans fans if it all worked right away. I mean, it probably won't. These are extremely young people doing an extremely difficult job. Also, who knows what the turnover, like you mentioned with JJ Redick, like there might be a bunch of churn anyway.
Yeah.
Like Drew Holiday could get traded. Lonzo could get traded. Derek Favors could get traded. Who knows what is going to happen there, but it is going to be, like, I assume Zion's first game back will be nationally televised.
Oh, yeah. It has to.
Like, I mean, I know that the NBA doesn't really change games as much as the NFL does, but you would think that you have to make a big game
up. All right. Should we go, since we've put together now an hour-plus pod?
Hey, All-Stars demanded of you. Wait, have you seen Star Wars yet?
I have not yet.
Wow, I'm impressed by that. Jesus.
Well,
good for you.
I'm living in Ann Arbor, Michigan, with no social interaction so far, so I haven't really talked to anyone about it, and I don't know. We haven't gotten around to it. Plus, we're getting a pupper. That's true. I haven't told you that. We're getting a puppy.
Nice. What are you gonna get?
Since I'm allergic to dogs, it has to be some sort of doodle. So we're getting a Labradoodle mixed with an Aussie. So they're bred to be like therapy dogs, so they're very chill and calm. And we got the runt of the litter and evidently the most calm. So very excited about that.
Oh, that's awesome. Congrats, man.
Thank you.
Ah, puppies.
I know.
That's
so
great.
Excited. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we will let you listeners go, and I will let Natty go. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, the whole 9 yards. We are there. Fake Teams channels where you can find us. So just search Fake Teams and we'll pop right up. Follow us on Twitter at The Long Two Podcast. We will be back at you next week. Hopefully Zion has stepped onto the court by then, but if not, we will make sure to discuss at length what to expect from him. Until next week, Natty, have a good week.
Have a great week, buddy. See you next time.